The twin moons of Velara glowed above the royal palace like cold pearls in a black sea. Inside the crystal halls, servants moved quietly, setting tables of shining silver and pouring glittering blue drinks. The air was full of music from floating instruments. Every sound, every movement was perfect, just like everything in the Velara Empire was supposed to be. Princess Elira. Velara stood before a mirror made of living glass. It showed not only her face, but also her emotions, calm, distant, and trapped. Her white gown shimmered like frozen starlight, yet she felt no beauty in it. It was her engagement ceremony day, the start of a union that would decide the fate of empires. Her reflection whispered back at her, soft but cold, "You will make peace for your people." Elira whispered in reply, "Peace, yes, but not freedom." The heavy doors opened, and Lady Saren, her personal aide, stepped in. The alien woman's silver skin caught the light, and her eyes glowed faintly violet, like all Velarans. "It is time, Princess. The High Council awaits." Elira sighed softly. "Tell me again, Saren, who am I marrying?" "The heir of the Dralcor Dominion," Saren answered, her voice respectful but low. "It will unite two great empires. War will end." "War will end," Elira repeated slowly, "and so will I." The banquet of peace, the grand hall of Velara, was filled with alien nobility from across the stars, tall, elegant beings of light, crystal, and shadow. Their speech was calm, their gestures graceful, but none of them smiled. To them, emotion was weakness. At the center of the hall stood the Velara Emperor, Elira's father, tall and cold as a statue of ice. When she entered, the hall bowed in silent respect. She nodded slightly, every motion perfect, every word rehearsed. She had been trained since birth to control everything, her thoughts, her tone, her breath. Yet inside, something wild and restless stirred, a wish to scream, to run, to choose. The Emperor raised his hand. "Tonight we celebrate peace. The union of Velara and Dralcor will strengthen our destiny." The crowd made the silent gesture of approval, but among the hundreds of alien faces, one stood out. Human. The human in the hall at the far side of the hall. Among the diplomatic guests, a human man stood out like a flame among ice. He was not tall compared to the aliens, but there was something alive about him. The way his eyes moved, the way he smiled easily, the way he looked at people, not through them. His name was Captain Ethan Hayes, a human diplomat from Earth. Humans had joined the galactic community only recently, and most advanced species saw them as wild, emotional, and unpredictable. To Elira, the sight of him was strange. She had seen humans before in brief meetings, but this man, felt different. He wasn't afraid of being himself. When their eyes met across the hall, Elira froze. It wasn't fear or confusion. It was something deeper. For the first time in her life, her heart skipped a beat, something that should not happen to a Velaran. For a second, the world seemed to go quiet around her. The lights dimmed, the music faded, and only that human's curious eyes existed. Then her training returned like cold wind. She turned away quickly, hiding the sudden warmth that touched her cheeks, something no Velaran ever felt. Whispers among the cold later that night. Elira stood near the balcony overlooking the city lights. The air was thin and shimmering. Her mind raced, but her face stayed calm. Saren approached again. "Princess, the banquet was a success. The guests are leaving. Who was the human?" Elira asked quietly. Saren blinked, surprised. "A representative from Earth, Captain Ethan Hayes. His people are observers, nothing more." "Observers," Elira repeated softly, looking down at the glowing city. "And yet," he looked as if he was alive. Saren tilted her head. "Humans are emotional creatures, Princess. Unstable. They act from instinct and heart rather than reason." Elira smiled faintly, the smallest smile. "Maybe that's why I noticed him." Her aide hesitated. "Should I report your interest to the council?" Elira turned sharply, her eyes cold again. "No, you will say nothing. But I want to know everything about this Captain Hayes. Where he comes from, what he believes, and why he was invited here." Saren bowed. "As you command." When the aide left, Elira looked up at the moons again. Her reflection in the glass seemed different now, less empty, more uncertain. "What did I see in him?" she whispered. Or, "What did he see in me?" A human's observation. At the same time, Ethan Hayes was recording a message in his guest quarters. His cabin was simple but full of strange alien decorations, symbols of diplomacy and peace. He looked into the recorder. Log entry, Day 1. The Velara Empire lives up to its reputation, beautiful but cold. They control emotion like it's a disease. I tried smiling at one of the guards. He almost fainted. He laughed softly, shaking his head. And the princess? She's something else. I don't know why, but when our eyes met, I felt like she saw straight through me, like she wanted to ask something she couldn't. He stopped the recording and looked at the glowing city outside. Something tells me this assignment won't be as boring as I thought. The council's plan. The next morning, Elira attended a private meeting with the High Council. Tall, ancient figures sat in a circle of light, their voices calm but filled with power. The human presence is unnecessary, one of them said. Their species has little influence. Keep them at a distance, princess. Yes, another added. Humans are unpredictable. Do not engage. Elira nodded politely, but inside she felt a quiet rebellion growing. Why was she forbidden to feel curiosity? Why must every choice be made for her? After the meeting, she returned to her chamber and looked at the files Saren had gathered overnight. The hologram displayed Ethan's record. Captain Ethan Hayes, Human Diplomatic Corps, known for unconventional behavior. Once diffused a conflict by telling a joke. Elira blinked. A joke? She tapped the hologram again, watching a small recording of Ethan laughing during a past conference. His expression, his tone, it was so human, so warm. Her people spoke with logic and precision, but his voice carried something different. Emotion. The silent realization later that day. Elira walked through the garden dome, a place filled with bioluminescent plants from across galaxies. She came here to think. The faint hum of life surrounded her. Glowing flowers, soft winds, quiet waterfalls. It was the only place she could be herself, away from the endless control of court life. Then she heard footsteps. She turned and saw Ethan walking down the path, looking around with open wonder. He noticed her and immediately bowed politely. Princess Elira, I didn't mean to intrude. I was told this dome was public. Elira studied him quietly. For most it is not. But I will allow it. He smiled. Not the formal diplomatic smile, but a real one. Thank you. This place is incredible. I've never seen plants that glow like this. Do they always shimmer like stars? She tilted her head. Always. They respond to emotion, though ours are faint. You, however, they seem to like you. Ethan looked down. The flowers near his feet pulsed brighter. Guess they can tell I'm impressed. For a moment, Elira felt something rise inside her, a warmth she didn't understand. She quickly looked away. You are different from the others, she said. You speak freely. You smile, you feel. Ethan laughed softly. That's just being human, princess. We feel a lot, sometimes too much. She hesitated. And does it not make you weak? Maybe, he said. But it also makes us alive. The words lingered in her mind like a spark in frozen air. Night of thoughts. That night, Elira could not sleep. The words repeated in her mind, alive. What did that mean? She had lived every day of her life under duty, command, and silence. She had never questioned the meaning of living until now. Her chamber window showed the stars, endless and cold. Somewhere among them, the human world of Earth spun with oceans, laughter, chaos, and warmth. She closed her eyes and whispered, what is it like to live without control? To laugh? To cry? She didn't know yet, but she wanted to. The beginning of change. The next morning, during the official ceremony of diplomatic thanks, Elira stood beside her father as guests from across the stars gathered once more. Ethan Hayes was among them, standing proudly with his small human flag. When the Emperor spoke, everyone listened in silence. But Elira's eyes wandered, toward the human who had made her feel something she had never known. When Ethan caught her gaze, he smiled again. Gentle, calm, real, and just like before, she froze. But this time, she did not look away. Something deep within her heart whispered, this human. He will change everything. The morning sun on Velara was not bright like Earth's. It was pale silver like light through ice. The palace walls shimmered faintly as Princess Elira Velara walked through the long corridors. Her mind was not calm. It was full of strange thoughts about a certain human, Captain Ethan Hayes. No one had ever made her curious like this before. No one had ever made her feel. She had spent the whole night remembering his smile, his voice, and that one strange word he used, alive, the observation that day. Elira requested a private reason to visit the lower diplomatic quarters. The guards followed her silently, not questioning a princess. She said she wished to observe the humans' delegation for cultural understanding. In truth, she only wanted to see Ethan again. When she entered the human quarters, she was surprised. The rooms were messy compared to the clean, cold halls of her palace. Human objects lay everywhere, small boxes, cups, books, and clothes. It looked real, not perfect, not empty. Lived in. Ethan stood near a small table talking to a holographic image of another human officer. When he saw Elira, he quickly ended the call and bowed politely. "Princess Elira, this is an honor. I wasn't expecting a royal visit." She looked around slowly. "Your quarters are unusual," he grinned. "You mean messy?" Her silver eyes blinked. "If that is your word, yes." He chuckled softly. "Yeah, humans don't like things too clean. Feels unnatural, you know? We like a bit of chaos. Makes us feel at home." She looked confused. "Chaos makes you feel at home?" "Sure. It means life is happening," he said easily, pulling out a chair. "Would you like to sit, princess?" She hesitated. No one ever offered her a chair before unless it was part of ceremony. But something in his tone felt honest, not rude. She nodded and sat gracefully. The first conversation, Ethan leaned on the table. "So, what brings the Princess of Velara to my tiny corner of the galaxy?" Elira answered calmly. "Curiosity." He raised an eyebrow. "About humans?" "About you," she corrected softly. That caught him off guard. "Me? I'm not that interesting." Her eyes studied him carefully. "You speak differently from others. You laugh. You ask questions. You are not afraid of being imperfect. That is unusual." Ethan smiled. "Well, humans don't aim for perfect. We aim for better." "There's a difference." "Better?" she repeated. "Explain." He scratched his head. It's like this. We know we make mistakes. But instead of pretending we don't, we try to learn from them. That's how we grow." She thought about that for a long moment. "My people do not make mistakes. We are trained to be exact." "That sounds exhausting," Ethan said quietly. Elira looked at him sharply. "Exhausting?" He nodded. "Yeah, never being allowed to be wrong. Never being allowed to feel. That's not peace, that's pressure." No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one dared. She lowered her eyes, whispering, "You speak as if you understand me." "Maybe I do," he said softly. "I've seen a lot of leaders who live for their people but forget to live for themselves." Her heart gave a strange ache. He was right. A lesson in humanity. Ethan reached into his bag and took out a small metal device. He pressed a button and suddenly soft music filled the room. Simple, slow, full of emotion. Elira tilted her head. "What is this sound?" "Music," Ethan said. "A song from Earth. Humans make it to express feelings." She listened, confused but curious. "Feelings and sound?" He nodded. "Yeah, it's like when you can't say something with words, you let music say it for you." She closed her eyes. The notes were warm and alive. They rose and fell, full of something her people had long forgotten and the emotion. "It feels..." She searched for a word. Warm, Ethan smiled. "Exactly. That's the point." For a moment, they both just listened. The silence between them wasn't awkward and it was peaceful. When the song ended, Elira opened her eyes. "We have never created something like this." "That's a shame," Ethan said kindly. "Because music doesn't just fill silence, it fills the heart." She looked at him, and something inside her began to change. A quiet shift she couldn't explain. Whispers of the court. But the palace was a place where secrets didn't stay secret for long. By the next day, whispers were spreading through the marble halls. Servants spoke softly. "The princess spends time with the human." She asked him about feelings. She smiled at him. Smiles were rare among Velarans. To them, emotion was almost forbidden. So when Elira smiled, even once, it became a scandal. The High Council was not pleased. During a private meeting, an elder spoke coldly. "Princess, the human is not your concern. You must not allow his behavior to influence you. You are to marry the Dralcor heir soon." Elira answered calmly, but her voice carried hidden fire. "He is a diplomat, and I am studying his culture." "That is all?" The elder's eyes narrowed. "Be careful, princess. Humans are contagious. Their emotions spread like flame. She left the meeting without another word, but inside she was trembling. Not from fear, but anger. Why was curiosity dangerous? Why was kindness forbidden? The Garden of Feelings later that night. Alira returned to the garden dome in the same place where they had met. She found Ethan there again, sitting near the glowing pond, sketching something on a digital pad. He looked up and smiled. Couldn't sleep either. She shook her head. My people do not sleep easily when our thoughts are loud. He grinned. Mine too, she sat beside him. What are you doing? Drawing, he said, showing her the pad. On it was a rough but lively sketch, a Valeran flower glowing beside a small human starship. I like mixing things that don't usually go together. She looked at it, her silver eyes softening. You draw feelings? I try to, he said. You should try it sometime. It's like seeing your heart outside your body. Alira hesitated. We are not taught to show our hearts. Maybe it's time someone did, Ethan said gently. She looked at him for a long time. You speak like no one I have ever met. And you listen like no one I've ever met, he said with a small laugh. That made her smile, a real one this time. The question that changed her, Alira leaned closer. Ethan, may I ask something? Of course. When you speak of choice, what do you mean? My life has always been chosen for me. My duties, my words, even my emotions. How can one simply choose? Ethan looked up at the stars through the glass dome. Choice isn't something others give you. It's something you decide to take. She repeated the word slowly. Something you take. Yeah, he said. Even when the world tells you no. Especially then. His words felt like light entering a dark room inside her heart. Alira looked away, struggling to keep her voice steady. If I took my choice, it would destroy everything my people planned. Ethan looked at her kindly. Then maybe it's time your people learned that even stars can't stay frozen forever. The discovery. The next morning, Saren, Alira's aide, came running into her chamber. Princess, the council has learned of your meetings with the human. They are demanding to end his stay. Alira's chest tightened. They want to remove him? Yes, they say he's influencing you. Alira stood silently for a moment, then turned toward the window. Her reflection looked different now, more alive, more uncertain. I will speak to my father, she said. Saren bowed nervously. Princess, please be cautious. The Emperor will not understand. I know, Alira whispered. But perhaps it is time he tries. The Emperor's warning. The royal throne room was cold and vast. The Emperor stood before the great window watching the sunrise. His presence was like ice, still perfect, eternal. Alira walked forward and bowed. Father, the human captain is under the council's judgment. I ask that you allow him to remain. Her father turned, his face expressionless. You are soon to be wed. Your focus should be on duty, not distractions. He is not a distraction, Alira said firmly. He is a lesson. A lesson in weakness, the Emperor replied. Humans live by chaos. We survive by control. She took a deep breath. Control without feeling is not life, it is only survival. The Emperor's eyes hardened. Be careful, daughter. Emotion leads to rebellion. Rebellion leads to destruction. I understand, she said quietly, but inside she no longer agreed. The quiet goodbye. That evening, Alira returned to the garden dome one last time. Ethan was there looking up at the alien stars. She told him softly, The council wishes to send you away. He nodded slowly. I figured they might. I tried to stop it, she said. But they do not listen. Ethan looked at her with a calm smile. Hey, don't worry. You did what you could, she shook her head. It is not enough. He reached out gently, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel his warmth. Alira, sometimes change doesn't happen in one day. Sometimes it begins with one person, daring to feel. Her eyes glistened faintly. Then maybe that person is you, he smiled. No, Princess. I think it's you. For a long time they stood in silence, surrounded by glowing flowers that pulsed brighter around them, reacting to emotion, the spark inside. When Alira returned to her chamber, she didn't feel cold anymore. Something inside her had shifted, a spark, small but alive. The human had shown her that emotions were not weakness, that choice was not rebellion, and that freedom was something worth feeling. For the first time in her life, Princess Aelira Velara looked at her reflection and saw a woman, not just a royal symbol. And the woman whispered softly to herself, "I will not be frozen forever." The palace of Velara was quieter than usual, but not peaceful. Whispers ran like cold wind through its shining halls, whispers about the princess and the human. She spends too much time with him. The council warned her. Humans are dangerous. Their emotions spread. Every word felt like a chain tightening around Princess Aelira Velara's heart. But the more the whispers grew, the stronger her curiosity and her courage became. The princess who smiled, Aelira's days began to change. She attended royal meetings, but her mind was somewhere else. In the human quarters, listening to Ethan Hayes speak about Earth, about laughter, about freedom. She began asking questions during the meetings, questions she was never supposed to ask. Why do we never express happiness during success? Why must peace mean silence? Why can we not smile? The council members exchanged worried looks. Aelira, their perfect symbol of logic and obedience, was beginning to sound human. After every meeting, she found herself wandering back toward the garden dome, where Ethan often spent his time studying alien plants. There, away from the cold eyes of the court, she felt like herself. Or perhaps for the first time, she was learning who she truly was. The garden talks Ethan greeted her with that same warm grin every time. "Back again, princess. I was starting to think you liked my company." She lifted her chin with a hint of royal pride. "I am studying human behavior." He laughed. "Sure you are." She frowned lightly, pretending not to smile, but her silver eyes betrayed amusement. They walked together under the glowing vines and gentle lights. The air always seemed softer around him. The plants, sensitive to emotion, glowed brighter whenever she drew near Ethan. It was as if even the garden approved of their quiet friendship. "Ethan," she asked one evening, "why do humans risk so much for love? It seems illogical." He smiled. "Maybe it is. But love isn't supposed to make sense, Aelira. It's what makes life worth the risk." She looked away. "In my world, risk is forbidden." "Then your world sounds like a cage," he said simply. She was silent for a long moment. Then she whispered, "Maybe it is." The watchers, but not everyone was blind to their meetings. Hidden drones floated in the gardens, recording everything. The royal council reviewed the images daily, growing angrier each time they saw the princess walking with the human, talking, smiling, even laughing. At last, the High Minister declared, "This must end. The human will leave within 3 days." When Aelira heard the decision, her heart sank. She tried to stay calm, but her voice shook slightly as she said, "Understood." The moment the meeting ended, she walked straight to the garden dome. The forbidden meeting, Ethan was there, sitting by the pond again, tossing pebbles into the glowing water. When he saw her face, his smile faded. "What happened?" he asked. "They're sending you away," she said softly. "The council believes you have changed me." He sighed. "Have I?" She looked down. "Yes. You have shown me that living is not the same as existing." Ethan stood and stepped closer. "And is that wrong?" "I don't know," she whispered. "Everything I was taught says yes, but my heart says no." He smiled sadly. "Sounds like your heart's finally louder than your lessons." For a moment, neither spoke. The soft light of the alien plants shimmered around them. Then Aelira asked quietly, "Will you go without saying goodbye?" "I wasn't planning to," he said. "I was hoping you'd come." She looked at him with surprise. "Why?" "Because there's something I want to give you before I leave." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object. A simple silver locket, shaped like a tiny star. Inside was a hologram of the blue planet Earth, spinning slowly. "This is home," Ethan said. "Whenever you feel trapped, look at it. Remember that freedom isn't just on Earth. It's inside you." Alara held the locket carefully, as if it were fragile. Her voice was barely a whisper. "It's as beautiful." He smiled. "So are you, when you stop hiding behind duty." Her breath caught. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not as a princess, but as a person. Caught, but fate is never kind to forbidden things. A sudden sharp voice echoed through the garden. "Princess Alara." Guards appeared at the edge of the dome, led by Minister Thalen, the head of the Royal Council. His cold eyes scanned the scene, the princess standing too close to the human, holding something in her hands. He stepped forward. "This is unacceptable. You will return to your quarters at once." Alara's heart pounded. "He is my guest. You have no right." "I have every right," Thalen snapped. "You are the heir of Velara. You will not shame your lineage for a human." Ethan tried to speak. "Minister, with respect." "Silence," Thalen barked. "Guards, escort the human to his ship. He leaves tonight." Ethan looked at Alara one last time. "It's okay," he said quietly. "Don't get in trouble for me." But she shook her head fiercely. "No, this is wrong. Princess," Thalen's voice turned harsh. "You will obey or you will no longer be heir." The guards surrounded Ethan, leading him away. He didn't resist, but his eyes never left hers, and for the first time, Alara felt helpless. The frozen throne room. The next morning, Alara stood before the Emperor, her father. The great hall was cold and silent, filled with blue light. He looked down at her with calm disappointment. "You allowed emotion to control you. You endangered our alliance." Alara met his gaze. "I only spoke with him. Is curiosity now a crime?" "It is when it threatens peace," he replied. "Peace built on silence is not peace," she said firmly. "It is emptiness." Her father's expression didn't change. "You will marry the Dralcor heir as planned. After the wedding, you will leave politics and live as tradition demands." Her chest tightened. "So that is my destiny? To be traded for peace?" "It is your duty," he said simply. She bowed her head. "Then perhaps I no longer wish to serve duty." The Emperor's hand twitched slightly, the smallest sign of shock, but his voice stayed calm. "Do not speak again of this human. He will be gone by sunset, the night of the storm at..." Night. A storm raged outside, rare for Velara where weather was controlled by machines. Lightning flashed across the sky as Alara paced in her room, her silver gown brushing against the floor. She couldn't think clearly. The words of her father, the council, and Ethan all mixed together in her head. Choice isn't something others give you. It's something you decide to take. Those words echoed again and again. At last, she turned to her aide, Saren. "Prepare my cloak. We are going to the spaceport." Saren's eyes widened. "Princess, that is forbidden." "So is feeling," Alara said. "And yet, here I am." The garden Farewell Ethan stood near his small human ship, checking his equipment one last time. The stormlight flashed across his face. He sighed, half smiling, half sad. He didn't expect to see her again. Then he heard footsteps. "Alara?" She stood there, her hair blown by the artificial wind, her cloak glittering with rain. Her silver eyes shone with emotion. "You came," he whispered. "I had to," she said. "I could not let you leave without knowing something." He stepped closer. "What?" "That you changed me," she said softly. "You made me feel alive." For a moment, they just looked at each other. The world seemed to stop. The rain, the lights, the noise, all fading into silence. Then Alara reached out and took his hand. Her skin was cool, his warm. Two different worlds, yet somehow they fit. "Thank you," she whispered, "for showing me what freedom feels like." He squeezed her hand gently. "Thank you for reminding me what it means to care." The price of emotion. They stood there for only a few seconds before the alarms blared. The guards had discovered her escape. Ethan looked at her, serious now. You should go. If they find you here, I am not afraid, she said. Not anymore. He smiled sadly. That's what scares them. Red lights flashed. Voices shouted through the comms. Princess located at the human dock. Elira turned to Ethan. Promise me you'll be safe. I will, he said. And maybe someday, you'll find your freedom too. Before she could reply, the guards arrived. She stepped back just as they surrounded him. The moment their hands touched her arm, she froze, not in fear, but in fury. I will not forget this, she said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with new fire. The reflection. Later that night, alone in her chamber, Elira looked into her mirror again. Her reflection was no longer calm and perfect. It was alive, full of confusion, emotion, and strength. The council thought the human had corrupted her, but in truth he had awakened her. She touched the locket hanging around her neck, the tiny hologram of Earth spinning slowly inside. The blue planet glowed like hope. For the first time she smiled without hiding it. They can cage me, she whispered, but they cannot freeze my heart again. Outside the storm faded, but inside the Princess of Velara a new storm had just begun, one that would soon shake the Empire itself. The Grand Hall of Velara shone brighter than ever, the crystal walls reflecting the light of the twin moons. Hundreds of dignitaries from across the galaxy filled the vast space, their forms glinting in pale silver and gold. The day of Princess Elira Velara's wedding had arrived. She stood in the hall, dressed in the ceremonial gown that shimmered like starlight. Her hair was braided perfectly, every detail precise, but her silver eyes betrayed her heart, restless, questioning, alive. Her father, the Velara Emperor, observed her from the throne. His posture was rigid, his face calm, but inside he was uneasy. He had ruled the Empire for decades, yet he had never seen his daughter so conflicted. Elira took a deep breath. Today she was supposed to marry the Dralcor heir to ensure peace between their empires. But today she felt torn between duty and her heart, between the world she had known and the life she might choose. The human's message, as the ceremony began. A small assistant handed Elira a holocom device. It was from Captain Ethan Hayes, sent before his departure. She hesitated, then activated it. A familiar smile appeared on the screen, the warm, human expression that had haunted her dreams for days. Elira, Ethan said softly, I know today is hard. I wanted to remind you. You are not frozen. You are not trapped. Even here in this palace, even under their rules, you can still choose. Her heart skipped. His words, simple but powerful, filled her with courage she had never known. The galaxy is bigger than any empire, Princess. Sometimes duty is heavy, but the heart is light. Don't forget it. She swallowed hard, holding the device close. His final words echoed in her mind. You taught me that even among stars, hearts can be lonely. But they don't have to be. The ceremony continued, but Elira's thoughts were elsewhere. She was no longer the obedient princess. She was a woman standing at the edge of choice, and she had just realized she could leap. The procession, the Dralcor heir approached, tall and commanding. His armor gleamed and his voice carried authority. Princess Elira, shall we unite our houses? Elira walked forward slowly, her gown flowing like liquid silver. The crowd watched in awe. Many whispered about her poise, her elegance, her obedience, but only she knew the storm brewing inside. She glanced once at the Emperor. His eyes were steady, expecting obedience. She lowered her gaze, hiding her thoughts. When she approached the Dralcor heir, her hands were trembling slightly. The locket from Ethan, hidden beneath her gown, rested against her chest, a small reminder of choice, of freedom, of a life beyond duty. The moment of pause, as the officiant began reciting the ceremonial vows, something inside Elira froze. Not in fear, but in realization. She had rehearsed her role, her words, her smiles, her bowing. But she could not speak the lines they had written for her. They were not hers. They belonged to the Empire, to politics, to duty, not to her heart. The hall went silent. Hundreds of eyes turned toward her. The Velara Emperor's brow furrowed. The Dralcor heir's expression shifted from confidence to confusion. Elira's silver eyes glistened with emotion. Her voice was soft, yet it echoed through the hall. I cannot. Gasps filled the room. Murmurs spread. The court froze. No one had ever defied a Velara princess during a ceremony. Her declaration. She straightened, her hands still clutching the invisible bond of Ethan's words. I will not marry for alliance. I will not marry for duty. I will choose my own path, the officiant stammered. Princess, this is unprecedented. I do not deny my responsibility, she said firmly. But a life lived without choice is not worth living. The room erupted in a mix of outrage and awe. The council shouted for order. Ministers demanded her obedience. But Alira stood tall, unmoving, unafraid. For the first time she realized she did not need permission to feel, to think, or to act. The same spark that Ethan had awakened in her heart now blazed like a star. Fierce, uncontainable, alive. The Emperor's shock. The Emperor rose from his throne. His voice calm but commanding. Alira, you will obey. This is your destiny. You will honor your family and your empire. She turned to face him, not with fear but with resolve. Father, I honor you. I honor our people. But I will not honor a life that is not my own. There was a silence so deep it seemed to swallow the hall. Even the alien light seemed to dim in shock. The Dralcor heir stepped back, confused and uncertain. The council members' faces were pale, their usual calm shattered. Alira looked toward the throne once more. I respect the Velara Empire. I respect its traditions, but I respect myself more. Freedom in action. Without another word, she turned and walked away from the altar. Her gown shimmered like starlight with every step. She did not run. She did not hesitate, the council shouted, but she ignored them. She did not need their approval. Her heart was no longer frozen, and her steps were guided by the knowledge that she could choose her own life. As she left the hall, the crowd parted silently. Even the guards did not stop her. Something about her courage, her calm determination, commanded respect. A hollow message from Ethan once. She reached her private chamber. Alira activated her holocom device again. Ethan's face appeared and she smiled, tears brimming. You did it, he said softly, pride in his voice. I knew you could. She held the locket against her chest. You taught me, Ethan. You taught me that even a princess can choose. He smiled warmly. And you reminded me that courage is not about strength or rules. It's about listening to your heart. I will leave tomorrow, he continued. But I want you to know your life is yours. Live it fully, Alira, she nodded, her eyes shining. I will, and maybe, someday, we will meet again. The Empire react's word of her refusal spread quickly. Across the Velara Empire, nobles and citizens alike were shocked. Some called her rebellious, others called her brave. The High Council convened an emergency, debating whether she should be punished or praised. The Emperor stayed silent for hours, reflecting on his daughter's unprecedented choice. Inside the palace, Alira felt no fear. She felt alive, fully, completely, without restraint. The court may have seen rebellion, but she knew the truth. She had taken her heart back. The dawn of change, as the twin moons of Velara set and a new sun rose, the palace was quiet. Alira stood by her chamber window, gazing at the galaxy beyond. She thought of Ethan, of Earth, of the stars she had never truly seen before. She thought of her people, her empire, and herself. For the first time, she realized that freedom was not given by others. Freedom was taken, earned, and chosen. The locket glowed faintly, casting a soft blue light across her face. She touched it gently. I am no longer frozen, she whispered. I am alive, and I will live as I choose. Outside, the galaxy stretched endlessly, full of possibilities. And inside Princess Alira Velara, a new chapter of life had begun, one written by her own heart. The twin suns of Velara rose slowly over the capital city, their golden light spilling through the crystal towers. The day after the wedding that never happened, the Empire was in chaos. News of Princess Alira's defiance had spread across the galaxy. Some called it bravery, others called it betrayal. The royal court was divided, the council furious and the emperor silent. But Alira, standing near her balcony, felt only peace. For the first time in her life, she had chosen her own path. She was not afraid. She was not frozen. She was free. Her gaze turned toward the distant spaceport beyond the city, where Ethan Hayes' ship was waiting for departure. Her heart ached at the thought of him leaving without knowing what she had done, what she had become. She whispered softly, Not yet. I won't let the story end like this. The plan to leave her loyal assistant Terran entered the chamber quietly. His blue skin looked pale with worry. Your Highness, he said in a hushed tone, the Council is demanding your presence. They intend to confine you to the palace until further notice. Elira turned toward him calmly. Then it is time for me to leave this palace forever. Terran's eyes widened. Leave? That's impossible. The guards are everywhere. You'd be captured before you reached the gates. Elira smiled gently. You forget, Terran. I am still their princess. They do not expect me to run. She reached into her gown and pulled out a small silver device, a personal cloaking emitter, something only the royal family possessed. Help me reach the transport hangar, she said firmly. Once I'm there, I'll take one of the diplomatic shuttles. Terran hesitated for a moment, then bowed deeply. It has been my honor to serve you, my princess. I will help you. Together they moved quietly through the palace corridors. The guards bowed as she passed, not knowing that their princess was walking toward exile. The escape reaching the hangar was not easy. Patrol drones scanned every entrance, and security checkpoints had been doubled since the ceremony's disruption. Elira activated her cloak. Her form shimmered and vanished, leaving only faint ripples in the air. Taran guided her through the hidden passages until they reached the outer deck where small royal shuttles were parked. The air was cold, filled with the hum of engines. Above them, the stars of Velara glowed, silent witnesses to her decision. This is it, Taran whispered. Once you launch, they will know you've escaped. Elira looked back at him one last time. Thank you, Taran. You've been more than a servant. You're my friend. He smiled faintly. May the stars protect you, princess. She entered the shuttle, powered it on, and disengaged the safety locks. The craft lifted silently into the air, then burst into the atmosphere like a streak of silver light. Behind her, the palace alarms began to wail. The chase through the stars moments later. The Velara defense ships were deployed. Her father had given no direct order, but the council acted on their own. Capture her alive, one officer commanded. The Empire cannot afford such disgrace. Elira's shuttle darted through the skies, pursued by 3 sleek interceptors. Her heart raced. She had never flown a ship herself before, but freedom gave her courage. The navigation system beeped. Ethan's ship, the Starbound Dawn, was already exiting orbit. She activated the communicator. Ethan, it's Elira. Do you hear me? Static filled the channel before his familiar voice came through, urgent and shocked. Elira, what are you— Wait, are those Velara fighters behind you? Yes, she said breathlessly, steering the shuttle hard to the left. They want to stop me. I won't go back. I'm coming to you. Ethan's tone turned sharp. Send me your coordinates. I'm coming to get you. The Starbound Dawn changed course immediately. Its human-made engines roared brighter than any alien ship nearby. The pursuing Velara pilots were stunned by the human vessel's sudden burst of speed. It was small, old-fashioned by galactic standards, but powerful, unpredictable and alive, just like its captain. The rescue within minutes, the human ship appeared on her scanners. Elira's shuttle shook as energy blasts passed nearby. One struck the left wing, causing sparks to fly. Ethan, she shouted, they're closing in. I see them. Hold steady, princess. I'm going to pull you in. The Starbound Dawn's docking bay opened and a magnetic field extended toward her. With careful maneuvering, Ethan guided her shuttle inside just as another blast hit the rear engines. The bay doors sealed, and the sound of enemy fire faded. When the airlock opened, Elira stepped out, her gown torn, her hair loose, her face glowing with freedom and relief. Ethan ran to her, eyes wide. You're insane, he said with a laugh, half in shock, half in admiration. You actually ran away from an empire. She smiled softly. You once told me freedom isn't given. It's taken. So I took it. Ethan stared at her for a moment, then laughed again, shaking his head. You're amazing. The Emperor's decision back on Velara. The Emperor stood alone in the throne hall, watching the stars through the massive glass dome. Reports came in. His daughter had escaped. The council demanded pursuit, punishment, and capture. But the Emperor raised his hand. No more, he said quietly. Let her go. The council was stunned. Your Majesty, she has defied the Empire. She has honored it, he interrupted. For too long we have lived without feeling, without heart. Perhaps my daughter's courage will teach our people something we forgot long ago. For the first time in decades, the Emperor smiled faintly. Let her live free. She is no longer the Princess of Velara. She is the voice of what we must become. Among the stars days past, the Starbound dawn traveled beyond the edge of the Velara system, into open space. Elira stood on the observation deck, watching the colors of the nebula swirl beyond the glass. Ethan joined her, holding 2 cups of steaming tea. So, he said with a grin, where to now, princess? She took the cup and smiled. I am not a princess anymore. Just Elira. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Then just Elira. Where do you want to go? She looked out at the endless galaxy and whispered, everywhere. I want to see the worlds I was never allowed to see. I want to learn, to live, to feel. Ethan nodded. Then we'll do it together. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the stars drift by. Elira turned toward him. Ethan, do you ever miss Earth? Sometimes, he admitted. But I think home isn't a planet. It's people. It's moments like this, she smiled at that. Then maybe I have found a new home among humans. The message from home one day, a transmission arrived. It was from the Emperor. Elira hesitated before playing it. His image appeared, one proud, older but softer somehow. My daughter, he began. I have watched your courage from afar. The Council still does not understand, but I do. You have shown our people what it means to feel. The Velara Empire will change slowly but surely. You were right to follow your heart. May the stars guide you always. Elira's eyes filled with tears. She whispered, Thank you, Father. Ethan placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Looks like you started something big. She laughed softly. Maybe, but I didn't do it alone. A new journey weeks later, the Starbound dawn landed on a beautiful blue-green planet, a small human colony world. The air was warm, the sky full of birds. Elira stepped onto the soil and closed her eyes. The feeling of real wind against her skin made her smile. She had never felt anything like it before. Ethan watched her, smiling. Welcome to freedom, Elira. She turned to him. Freedom feels strange. It's messy, uncertain, but it's real. That's humanity for you, Ethan said, laughing. We don't always know what comes next, my dad, but we keep moving forward. She nodded. Then let's move forward together. The final lesson. That night they sat near a quiet lake, the stars of 2 galaxies shining above. Elira looked at her reflection in the water. Not the princess she once was, but a woman who had chosen her own destiny. Ethan spoke softly. You know, back on Earth we have a saying, even the coldest star burns somewhere inside. She smiled. Then maybe I was that star, frozen for too long, waiting to feel again. He looked at her gently. And now you do. Elira leaned back, looking up at the endless sky. The galaxy is vast, Ethan. So many stars, so many hearts waiting to wake up. He nodded. Then let's wake them. One world at a time. Their laughter echoed softly across the water, blending with the sound of the wind, or the sound of freedom, choice, and new beginnings. And as the Starbound dawn waited on the horizon, ready for its next journey, 2 souls, 1 human, 1 alien, stood as living proof that even among countless stars, the power of feeling, of being human, could change the universe.